Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to talk about Mars and Rahu in Gemini and Saturn and Ketu in Sagittarius. I'm sure there has been a lot of stuff on YouTube where many astrologers have given their eminent views on how Mars and Rahu in Gemini is going to turn out, and how Saturn and Ketu in Sagittarius is going to turn out, and how the nodal axis, which is actually hosting Mars in Gemini and Saturn in Sagittarius, Mars and Saturn in opposition to each other, mutual aspects from Gemini and Sagittarius, is a very hot topic today. And it is also a very intimidating thing where um, people tend to get over nervous about what Mars is going to offer from Gemini in conjunction with Rahu, and what Saturn is going to offer in terms of being in conjunction with Ketu, while Gemini is a fire sign and Sagittarius is, Gemini is an air sign and Sagittarius is a fire sign. So it's a very, it's a very tricky period. It's a very tricky ask. And it's going to be a mentally draining transit, and it's also going to be a physically demanding and also draining transit in many ways. And let's talk about Mars in Gemini. Mars is, I think we already spoke. I did a video with Lars on May 2019 transit, and we spoke a lot about Mars in Gemini. But let me just let me just throw away a few points of what Mars and Gemini is capable of offering. So Mars is the planet of action, and is Gemini is a dual sign, and Gemini directly relates to communication and multitasking and technology and stuff. So Mars is pretty much in line with all those things, and Mars kind of promotes all these activities, and things could get quickly done. And Rahu is also a planet that signifies nervousness. There is a lot of nervousness within individuals in terms of reacting to specific situations, but still, initially I'm looking at the positive side of this transit, where we quickly wanted to get into action, and we quickly want to get things done within the actual deadline or well before the deadline. So that's what it means generally. And Saturn in Sagittarius is a sign of natural, sign of philosophy and spirituality, religion, and higher truth, which is ruled by Jupiter. And Sagittarius is the natural ninth house. It is the house of righteousness. Saturn is the heart taskmaster. Saturn is kind of promoting righteousness from the sign of righteousness itself. So it's a very profound transit. It's a very deep transit. It's a very impacting transit, not just from external environment, but also from an inner self. This opposition is going to be physically demanding. So to talk about Mars and Saturn opposition, it's going to be a very physically challenging. I've emphasized this already 2 or 3 times within 3 or 4 minutes of this video. So it is important to find ourselves at the right time, at the right place, to do the right thing, because Mars is our energy, and the opposition of Mars and Saturn kind of puts conflict in terms of utilizing our energy, where Saturn sets boundaries as to what we want to do and what we want to do, while Mars just doesn't want to wait, while Saturn needs some time, and Saturn has some limitations to itself. As I said, Saturn needs boundaries, and Saturn is going to set boundaries. So there will be a challenge in terms of balancing these inner emotions, in terms of Mars pushing you to get things done, while Saturn is kind of frustrating a little bit, and Ketu is also kind of adding to this. So there is a lot of imbalance in the mind, and nodes, as it is, kind of directly represent imbalance. So wherever the nodes are placed, imbalance kind of creeps in. That particular area of our life not necessarily goes for a toss, but still it demands our attention and all those stuff. So to talk on a mundane level, so I think it is important for you to note what I've given on the background here. It's 17 to 24 degrees. So let me tell bounds for Indian viewers. Bounds is the Hellenistic equivalent of Trimshamsha with little bit of difference in terms of which planet owns which particular part of a sign. But at the end of the day, it is just how dividing the zodiac signs into various parts, and bounds kind of splits the sign into 5 unequal parts, and and it kind of gives a ruler of each part. So sun and moon doesn't own a bound, but other planets, Saturn, Mars, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter, get a bound each to rule in every sign of the zodiac. The proportion at which each planet rules each bound in each sign is different, and the manner, I mean, the sequence is also a bit different. And I use Egyptian bounds. So there is Ptolemaic bounds as well. People use Ptolemaic bounds and Egyptian bounds, but I'm kind of used to. I find Egyptian bounds. I mean, I use Egyptian bounds, and I'm more used to using Egyptian bounds, and I could easily relate to it. But you can use whatever you want to. I know my friend Lars uses Ptolemaic bounds, and he gets really fantastic results. So it depends upon what you basically want to use. So every system of astrology is good on its own at the end of the day. So the most critical part here is that, see, already there's been a lot of videos on YouTube talking about this specific opposition from the nodal aspect of nodal axis of Saturn and Mars. But I just wanted to do this video a bit late because I have a distinct impression in terms of feeling that this particular opposition and this particular position of Mars and Saturn in the nodal axis is going to take time to kind of manifest at a mundane level. And I think June is going to be a very critical period in terms of the end of May, the last week of May and June until the first fortnight of June is going to be a critical period in terms of both inner and outer self of humanity or human beings in general. So Mars is placed in Gemini, and Mars, I hope you can just see this degrees of Mars. So I've kind of placed the exact opposition point between Saturn and Mars, which is at 2450 degrees of Gemini and Sagittarius, which means Mars is placed at 24.5 degrees of Gemini, and Saturn is placed at 24.5 degrees of Sagittarius, which marks the exact opposition. I think it falls on June 14th. So, but before that, Mars enters more critical areas. One is Mars transits into Ardra Nakshatra, which is ruled by Rahu, and Ardra Nakshatra is Ardra is a nakshatra that kind of signifies destruction, but I see that destruction as a more philosophical sense rather than mundane sense. There is absolutely mundane value to it. I'll get back to that later, but still, from a very philosophical and an individual humanistic point of view, Mars's position in Ardra Nakshatra is going to kind of energize and put our physical body in action in terms of destroying all the illusions that we have, or the illusions that we have been believing. So it is one of those periods where we break all the false, or break all the illusions, or break all those non-existent things that we were believing in our minds that those exist and those are going to help us. So it is one of those fantastic times where you can get rid of all those nonsense around you. Especially, I think nonsense is the right word. So you want to kind of push all the nonsense out. Same way Saturn and Ketu and Sagittarius is also kind of signifying similar things by being placed in the sign of righteousness or the sign of dharma, which kind of helps us to take our route. Switch over our path en route to dharma, or en route to kind of uphold dharma or uphold righteousness. So Ardra is, although we have a very positive sense, or from a philosophical point of view, with Ardra and Mars and Ardra in Gemini, there is also a lot of other things where Mars and Saturn can do being in opposition in these signs. So first, so the 17th to 24th degree of Gemini is ruled by Mars. That is the zone of Martian bounds, and 24th degree to 30th degree of Gemini is ruled by Saturn, which is the Saturn bounds. So Mars in own bounds, even though if you want to kind of take Mars being more constructive when it's placed in Martian bounds, uh, at the end of the day, Mars is a natural malefic, and its bounds also kind of gives some kind of you know. I mean, it shows some kind of maleficence at the end of the day. So it is important for us to remain safe during that period, especially simple things like we might get our hands cut because Gemini kind of signifies hands, and Rahu is placed there in Ardra in conjunction with Rahu, or we might get our hands burnt, or we might have some, some kind of skin related sensations or irritating sensations uh, at some part of, especially hands. And so it's important to take care of our own self. We need to be careful of sharp or very pointy tools or items. It is important for those engineers or the people who work with hard tools to kind of put uh, conscious effort in terms of being safe or taking care of themselves, because it's a very important period, or it's a very bad period where you can get yourself hurt in a very bad manner. So, and that's why I'm kind of stressing upon those things, because Rahu also signifies cutting things, and iron and all those things. So be careful when you are dealing with iron or any other metals, because Saturn is also in opposition, and Mars signifies surgical equipments and knives and all those things. So be careful whenever. I don't need to explain more than this in terms of what is a hard equipment or what is a very dangerous equipment. So whenever you're dealing with some kind of hard metal equipments which are potentially dangerous in terms of harming you or harming others as well, be very very cautious and careful when you use them for the next 30 days or so from now. I'm recording this video on 11th May 2019. So I would really stress on being very cautious in terms of dealing with all those items. And uh, Saturn and Mars also kind of signify heavy vehicles in some manner, and Rahu and Ketu are there. So oil. So if someone is working in oil related industry or uh, something like that, I think it is important for you to be careful and follow all the norms, safety norms that are kind of stipulated by your industry or company or whatever it may be, because it finally it has a very mundane impact. So we really don't want to see any catastrophe or a calamity as such. So that is one thing. And then later on, Mars will move into the second part of, the final part of Gemini, final bound of Gemini, which is ruled by Saturn. And Mars and Saturn bounds, I don't think I need to really explain what it kind of can cause. So um, first thing what Saturn does is it puts a pressure or a huge load or burden over Mars's tendency to be complete action oriented when it is placed in Gemini. So before someone else puts a brake on your before someone else puts a brake on your progress, I think it is important for you to put some brake on your progress and start analyzing what is going wrong. And instead of running quickly and falling down without carefully looking at what is ahead, it is always better to kind of stay there and kind of check what is in front of you in darkness and then just move ahead. And I think that kind of makes more sense. So give some kind of pacifying effect to Mars, and kind of put down your Martian energy, lie low during this period, and get things done slowly after a good review or something like that, so that you don't fall, because falling and getting up again is always difficult. Rather, it is always good to move from an inertia position. So that's what I mean to say. So instead of falling, just take care of yourself and be calm, and then move ahead when you see things more clearer and when you have more clarity or vision. So I think we spoke about Mars transit, Saturn bounds, Mars transit, Martian bounds, and Saturn in own bounds of Sagittarius. So I think that is a very important time for those people who are involved in I mean illegal stuff or something like that. I think it is a very profound period where they might get caught, or yeah, government can kind of penalize them, because over a period of time sun will move into Gemini, and then things will there will be an opposition between Saturn and sun. Sun will be placed with Mars and Rahu, and will be opposite to Saturn and Ketu. So there is a lot of uh, government penalizing stuff that is going to happen for those who are involved in illegal stuff. So if you so even though you're not voluntarily, or you're not purposefully involving in any stuff like that, make sure that you are legitimate and clean during that particular period, and no one can point their fingers at you. So that's very crucial uh, during that period. And after that we have, yeah, I think I already spoke about Mars and Saturn opposition. So let's talk something about mundane level. I think I already spoke some stuff about mundane level. So from a mundane level, I think sun, again, when it moves into the zone, nodal axis, and the opposition zone of Saturn and Mars, there is, of course, there is a lot of trouble in terms of a government to take care of its people. That is one thing. So there might be chaos, and clumsiness, or some kind of destruction might happen somewhere. Um and yeah, so it's because there has been a lot of dreadful activities against humanity that has kind of caused havoc, uh, and it has kind of brought down the morale of a nation at many a times. So it is important for us to stay safe, especially during this period, um, and be away from hot things or fire stuff. Yeah, that is one thing. And apart from that, I think, yeah, so anytime destruction could happen, be wary of explosives or ballistics or something like that. If you find some kind of accident that is going to happen due to fire, or if you see something, please make sure that you kind of get things right by informing to the proper authorities or related authorities, who can kind of get things done or get things rectified in a right way. And this same kind of conjunction happened when yeah, if we go back in time, this conjunction happened in the year 1989. Sorry, not the conjunction, but the Saturn Mars opposition. So, and yeah, on a mundane level, if you see, it is very, very important for you to kind of take care of yourself, because moon signifies humans in mundane astrology. And whenever moon transits your 12th house from the sun, or from moon, or natal ascendant, I think it is important for you to be careful at that particular point of time. And when moon kind of squares, that is when moon is placed in Pisces, or when moon is placed in Virgo, it is a very critical period where you need to be safe, where entire humanity needs to be safe. And when moon is in conjunction with Saturn and Ketu, or when moon is in conjunction with Mars and Rahu, it's a very, very critical period where, as a human race, we need to remain safe and be. I know what I mean. Everyone knows what happened in Sri Lanka, and see, as a human, we cannot stop a lot of things, but at least we can kind of stay away. And if every individual kind of tries to stay away or stay safe, I think we can kind of bring down the calamities or catastrophes to some level. So that's what I mean. Because on April 30th, 1989, there was a bomb about to explode in Oslo, but the police were pretty strong, and they kind of caught it. And extremists, or the suspects, were kind of arrested. And on May 24th, 1989, there was assassination that happened in Bolivia, and then on May 30th, 1989, bombing was attempted to assassinate some important figure in Colombia, but at the end of the day, the bomb kind of killed other 37 innocent people. So there has, I'm just giving you a glimpse or short example of what happened in the past during this conjunction. So I'm not meaning to say that same thing is going to happen again. This conjunction is specific to Sagittarius and Gemini axis. So it's not I'm not talking about any other axis. So this is not a threat in anyone, but this is just to kind of stay safe and uh, be safe, do good, and be good, and I'm sure things will fall in place. And of course, the greater power is going to save us, humanity and human nature. Thank you so much, and see you again.